Okay, real and nominal GDP. Now when we talk about the concept of real and nominal, okay, now as I told you that when we calculate GDP, so GDP is basically the purpose is to see the final goods and services produced. So when we calculate GDP, so we used to calculate in this way final goods and services produced into price, into price. Now you have to multiply with this price. So now we have two prices. One is constant price, one is constant price and another is current price. One is constant price and another is current price. Now when I am taking current price, I am talking about the current price of, you can say, present price in a financial year, okay, or you can say in current financial year. When I talk about, you can say, constant price, so I am talking about the price. Constant price means price of a product in base year, okay. So price of a product in base year, okay, whereas here I am talking about price of a product in current financial year, okay. So price in current financial year. Now possibilities like this, if I talk about this product, maybe possibility that this pen is made at 10 rupees in base year, okay. So its price of this pen is 10 rupees in base year, whereas the price of this product currently is 15 rupees, okay, 15 rupees. Now why it is 15 rupees? So we assume, as I told you yesterday, that every year there is inflation of 4 plus minus 2%, okay. So ultimately this price is 15 rupees because of inflation, okay, because of inflation. And you know that inflation is required, okay, and you know that inflation is required. So because of inflation, the price is you can say 15 rupees, okay. So we have two prices, 10 rupees and 15 rupees. Now suppose this year 100 pen are manufactured, okay. So 100 pen are manufactured. So I will calculate GDP in this way, 100 into, so I have two prices, one is constant or current prices. So if I calculate at constant prices, so if I calculate using constant price, so it will be 100 into 10, okay. So the GDP will be 1000, okay. So you will say that GDP at constant price is 1000. And when I calculate GDP using current prices, so you will say 100 into 15. So in that scenario, GDP will be 1500, okay. So this is, you can say, GDP at current prices, okay. So you can say this year 100 pen are produced, okay. Now if I talk about base year also, okay. So for example, in base year 50 pen are produced. So we can say the GDP of base year is 50 into prices in base year. So in base year the price is 10 rupees. So ultimately 500. So this is the GDP of base year. So if I compare 500 with 1000 and if I compare with 500 with 1500, so you will see that growth rate is different. So here growth rate is, you can say, here growth rate is around 100%. Okay, if I compare 500 with 1000, so here growth rate is 100%. Okay, here growth rate is 100%, and we assume that there is a gap of 10 years. Okay, there is a gap of 10 years between current year and constant year, that is base year. So for example, today it is 2024. Okay, and I assume that base year is 2014 for example. Okay, so base year I take 2014, although in actual base year is 2011-12. Okay, but assume that base year is 2014. Okay, and this is the current year 2024. Now we can say that GDP has grown at the rate of 10% every year. Okay, so this is what 500 to 1000. Okay, yes or no? So we can say that GDP has grown at 10% per year. Okay, now if you see this point 500 to 1500, so when I compare with, you can say GDP calculated at current prices, so can I say that GDP has grown at 150% when I compare with base year? So on an average, on every year basis, it has grown 15%. Yes or no? यहाँ तक समझ आया सबको? Is it clear till here? Please tell me. तो दोबारा बता रहा हूं मैं कि whenever we calculate GDP, so GDP is calculated by taking final goods and services into price. Now we have two prices. One is constant price, another is current price. So constant price is the price of base year. Okay, current price is the price of current financial year. So you will find a difference. So constant price, okay, is of base year. Current price is current price, which means it has increased because of inflation. Okay, which has increased because of inflation. Okay, now whenever we calculate GDP, okay, so in this, so ultimately we have to compare the GDP with base year. So in base year, suppose 50 pens are produced. So assume that only this product is produced in an economy, or only one product is produced. Okay, so then you can assume that in economy there are so many factories which are producing final goods and services. But for easy understanding, we assume that only one product is produced. So in base year, 50 pens are produced. Okay, and in base year the price of this pen is 10 rupees. So we can say that GDP in base year is 500 rupees. Now this year 100 pen are produced. So if I calculate GDP as per the prices of base year, that is constant price, so GDP will be 100 into 10,000. If I consider GDP using current prices, so the GDP will be 100 into 15, so it is 1500. So when I compare, you can say GDP कि कितना growth rate हुआ है, कितना growth rate हुआ है. So I told you GDP in numbers as well as growth rate. तो मैं यहाँ पर growth rate देख रहा हूँ, तो मैं compare करूँगा इसको base year से. So when I compare this GDP number with base year, so 100% growth is there. So can I say that 10% per year? So assuming that base year is 2014 and the current year is 2024. So can I say that GDP has grown at 10%? Okay. Now on an average, that is per annum. Now when I compare with that, then I'll say that GDP is grown at 150%. So can I say that it is 15% per annum? Please tell me in comment section. Okay. Okay, now I hope it is clear to you. Everyone, coordinator, please pass on the messages. Okay, so this is what you have to understood. So ultimately when we calculate GDP, okay, GDP by taking into consideration constant prices, so we call that GDP as, you can say, real GDP. So this is called as real GDP, and this is called as nominal GDP. Nominal GDP. So this is a difference between real GDP and nominal GDP. Clear? 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 So ultimately, if you see nominal GDP, that in nominal GDP there is a okay, in nominal GDP there is, you can say, the factor of inflation is there. Factor of inflation is there, and because of this factor of inflation, you will not understand, or we will not able to calculate the total final goods and services produced. But when you compare the real GDP with base year GDP, then you can easily calculate, the total, or you can say total final goods and services प्रोड्यूस्ड, ओके, टोटल गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज फाइनल प्रोड्यूस्ड, ओके। नहीं समझ आया तो एक लास्ट एग्जांपल देखते हैं। हमारे पास तीन वैल्यूज होंगी, वी हैव थ्री वैल्यूज, वन इज जीडीपी ऑफ बेस ईयर, another is real GDP which we calculate by taking the prices of constant year। तो इसमें हम क्या कर रहे हैं, prices तो हम किसके ले रहे हैं, prices we are taking of constant year, that is base year। So when I am using a word constant year it means I am talking about base year, but जो number of product produce हुए हैं वो that we are taking of current year, number of product produced, number of product produced that we are taking of current year, ओके। और जीडीपी एट बेस ईयर में हम क्या कर रहे हैं, प्राइसेस किसके ले रहे हैं, प्राइसेस बेस ईयर के ही ले रहे हैं, प्राइसेस ऑफ बेस ईयर जिसको मैंने नाम दिया कांस्टेंट ईयर, ओके, प्लस नंबर ऑफ प्रोडक्ट प्रोड्यूस्ड is number of product produced is of constant year, is of constant year, so you can say base year itself, okay। जब हम nominal GDP की बात कर रहे हैं, when we are talking about nominal GDP, so जो हम prices ले रहे हैं, prices we are taking of current year, and when we take the prices of current year, no doubt it has increased because of inflation, so one of the factor। And when we take the prices of, or you can say when we talk about number of products, so number of product is of number of product produced that we are taking of current year, okay। Now when we start comparing this thing, okay, so you can understand when we compare this GDP with this GDP, so we will get actual growth rate, sorry, actual growth rate in final goods and services, okay। And but when we compare with this, okay, clear, so when we compare with this, so whatever growth we have, okay, there you can say there will be the effect of inflation, there will be effect of inflation, and hence we don't know about the data of, or we don't know about exact increase in we don't know about exact increase in final goods and services, okay, we don't know about final goods and services। So I hope it is clear to you, okay, clear, okay। Conclusion क्या है sir, if inflation is too high and producer don't want to make product then GDP will be low, okay। So conclusion इसमें ये है बेटा, okay, okay। Now some students are interested about inflation rate of other major economies, beta we are if you see your syllabus only talks about Indian economy, okay। So if we have to, like, this is, you can say, Indian civil services, if we have world civil services then we have to talk about world level, clear, so you have to understood that it is Indian civil services, okay, so you are going to become Indian administrative services, so please focus on that, okay। No doubt we can talk about other economies, but that is not a part of your syllabus, we can talk about through an informal channel, okay, that is you can contact me anytime, so we can talk about that, clear। Now if you see अगर मेरे को GDP बढ़ानी है, okay, like sometimes government used to say that India will be $10 trillion economy, okay, $10 trillion economy, that you can do without increasing the production, okay। So ultimately, suppose this year you produced 100 products or 100 pen, okay, and if suppose you inflate the price, earlier it was 15 rupees, so means GDP will be 1500. Now you keep the production same 100, you increase the price, means inflation, okay, without increasing the production you can increase the GDP also, okay, 2000, okay, whereas 30, 3000. Okay, so you can say nominal GDP can be increased even without increasing the production. That is by increasing the prices or by inflation. Okay, so you can say nominal GDP. Okay, nominal GDP can be increased even without increasing production. Okay, so even without increasing production, you are increasing the nominal GDP, and now you compare. Okay, so like if suppose my base year GDP is 500, now I will compare. So you will see that GDP is increasing, but production is not increasing. Okay, production is not increasing. So nominal GDP you can increase even without increasing production, that is by inflating the economy. Whereas if you see in real GDP, our focus is on increasing the production, not on prices. That is why we take constant prices. So it means 10 rupees. So whatever is the price in base year. So in base year we have 50 pen and price is 10. That is why we have 500 GDP. So ultimately in real GDP, whenever you increase this production, then only your GDP will increase. So if it is 100, so it means 1000. So if it is 120, so it means 1200. So it is 115, that is 150, sorry, then it is 1500. Then only you will compare it, then you will say yes, it is increase in production. So that is why I told you, our purpose of calculating GDP is that we want to see the total, okay, our purpose is to that we want to see the increase in total new final goods and services, okay, increase in final goods and services. So there may be possibility that our production get reduced, for example it becomes 50 only. Okay, so when you compare with base year, you will see that no change. Okay, no change. Got it? Is it clear to you? Okay, so if you see normally, okay, normally not always your nominal GDP will be more than real GDP. Okay, your nominal GDP will be more than real GDP. Clear? Nominal GDP will be more than real GDP. Okay, so this is what you have to remember. Okay, but when I am giving this statement, so we assume that production is not reduced. Okay, production is not reduced, at least whatever production we have in base year, the same production we have in current year. Okay, so this statement comes with condition, okay, that normally your nominal GDP will be more than real GDP, and this will be only when we assume that whatever production of goods and services we have in base year, the same we have in this year also. Okay, clear? Is it clear to everyone? Please tell me. Please tell me in comment section. Okay, now moving further. So this is the concept of real and nominal. So remember that real is inflation adjusted. Okay, real is inflation adjusted. Okay,